Thanks for joining us. I am Stephanie from Stephanie Belly Dance LLC, and I am here with...
I'm Prakash Narayanan. I'm the host of AI in the AM, a morning AI news show, and I focus on all topics on AI.
Amazing. So we know each other because we were the same year at Stanford, although I didn't know you when we were on campus. I think that I was stuck in Robley doing a lot of dancing, so I didn't get out as much maybe as I should have.
And I was stuck in the bottom of the electrical engineering building where I never left. So
we were stuck in our respective corners. Yeah. But here we are at the beautiful Stanford Sierra Camp Conference Center. And the reason why we're here is I thought, let me ask somebody who's really plugged into the AI world about the intersection between art and AI. Because obviously that's a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. And I also feel like there's a dearth of conversation around that. And I think it's much more nuanced than just yes or no. The very edge cases of like, everything is 100% human, everything is 100% AI. Like, I think it's pretty clear, like, well, that's not good, right? If AI wrote the whole thing for you. But I actually think it's kind of that nuanced middle. Like, what if you used to help you brainstorm or whatever the thing is? We'll talk more about that. But I would like to bring this conversation more broadly into sort of the bubble outside. I wanted to bring it into the world sort of outside of the Silicon Valley bubble, which I've been a part of. And I want to make sure that people feel like we can start to talk about this. Okay, so I have a bunch of questions here. And I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So in my dance world, movement is passed down from generation to generation, and it's rooted in culture and physical presence, human connection. And generative AI is built on synthesizing millions of pieces of existing human art. So my question is, do you see AI as a tool that can honor and expand cultural art forms, or does it risk diluting the soul and history behind traditional practices?
So I think it's a very nuanced kind of topic, and I think a lot of people get very emotionally invested because of the emotional intensity that we have towards our own cultural practices. But in many ways, I think AI is a tool that expands voice to a lot of people. And the way I look at AI, I mean, very simply, a person who can write a prompt can generate a piece of imagery. And a lot of people do not have the ability to draw. And for the people who don't have the ability to draw, being able to talk an image into existence is kind of a big deal. And I look at it as kind of like, in the limit, we all have stuff stuck in our heads, and we have this tremendous amount of difficulty in expressing what is in our heads in the full depth of its of its maturity and the entire process. And when we write something down, for example, we're kind of filtering it out into like this very compressed format that ends up being published. And I think it's the same way in terms of dance expressing emotion. It's very difficult for us to express many of these complex emotions even on paper, which is even in words, which is why dance is so is such a base thing where some form of this kind of emotion that is tied to our physicality can be expressed. And I think to the extent that AI helps someone who does not have voice express those emotions and express themselves fully, I think that is great. So, and I don't think that is actually a replacement in any sense, because a lot of those people did not have the ability to draw, or did not have these abilities to sing or make music, or et cetera, et cetera. And but there is no doubt that they also experienced that kind of emotional intensity. They were just not able to express that externally. And I think it's almost been a little bit unfair. If, for example, I write a lot. I write copiously. Reddit, for example, about 99% of people on Reddit do not actually write anything. They are actually lurking and reading. So Reddit really consists of the 1% of writers expressing themselves, and the 99 other percent of people kind of reading and liking, etc., etc., etc. But it's really like the 1% which is being expressed. If you look at books, novels, for example, maybe less than 1% of humanity has written a novel, right? Probably like 1 in every million people probably write something of novel length. 99% of people do experience that kind of emotion. And I think that to the extent that I think AI helps bridge that unfairness that has always existed in communications. So.
Okay. So let me, I like what you said about helping people who don't have that ability. But let me follow up with that. So you and other people in tech circles have talked about AI democratizing art by letting anyone generate a song or a painting. You know, dancing is a little bit of a separate thing, I think. But as someone who's spent decades on a physical expressive craft, I know that there's a lot of value in that productive struggle, which we had talked about yesterday. And the struggle of learning and that friction, which doesn't feel good. You know, like our kids are like, I don't want to do this, it's hard. I think that there's something vital in that. And do you think we might be losing something about the human experience if we make the creation of art less frictionful? I don't want to say frictionless, but if we reduce that amount of productive struggle.
I think the productive struggle is useful in creating that kind of intensity that you want out of the piece, right? But I don't think that for a lot of people, if they're able to achieve their kind of goal of expressing themselves, but they don't have that productive struggle, I don't think that's a bad thing. So I do think the productive struggle is good. I do think it's a necessary part of developing that intensity, because I don't think someone who does throwaway pieces has the same amount of intensity in that emotion. But I don't think that necessarily restricts the other person from producing something, right? So I don't think it's like a zero-sum game. I think it's like completely like additive. Like you can have that productive struggle, and it is an art, it is a craft. It is something that you enjoy, and as you have that struggle, you get better at it, and you have greater depth of feeling and greater appreciation for how difficult it is to do. But I don't think it detracts that someone else is able to also achieve other good products or good pieces.
And what if, using AI, you create something that's hollowly similar, but somewhat similar, at least at first glance. And let's just say you make more money, you get more views, you get more likes or whatever as somebody, or even close to, maybe not even more, than somebody who's put in years and maybe decades. And I think there's something that feels unfair in that to an artist who's put in that elbow grease.
Human artists will adapt to produce artworks which are outside the zone of like common production, which is very similar to what happened when photography came about, and you had all of these portrait painters, even Leonardo da Vinci and everyone else. They painted portraits. They were commissioned, and they made their living by painting portraits of famous people. And then you had the transition to photography, and as photography got really good, artists moved on to abstract pieces, impressionist and abstract pieces. Art is a form of compression of human emotion. You're trying to express in a single piece all of this like very vivid and very dramatic and very intense, a lot of depth in just a single piece, which another human being can experience in a single glance and somehow have a similarity of emotion that you can invoke. And I think artists will progress to finding other kind of ways that they can invoke that kind of emotion outside of the common sphere of stuff which is everyone else is already doing, which is what artists have always done, like throughout the years. And I think the key part of the artistry is not so much in the production, but is in identifying what will have that kind of emotional resonance with someone else. And that is, and I think that is that key part of detecting what emotional resonance a piece can have towards someone else. And that is not in purely the external kind of representation or production of the piece. Human artists have much more kind of a sense of this, how everyone else will take a piece, how to reshape the piece in order to get certain kinds of emotion, how to tailor the kind of like ups and downs of a certain piece. That is not something that I think is a pure AI production thing. It's really like a sensing of the other person or of the audience's kind of spirit. And I think that is like pretty much like impossible. Right now you can produce like 1 million pieces and you have like people watch the 1 million pieces and kind of try to see if they like something, but that's not really like the way that you're going to get like a good piece. So the production piece is, I think, only half of the story. So.
Okay, that's a very interesting perspective. Thank you. So just moving along the list of questions here, because I have quite a few. So I teach local belly dance workout and technique classes in Turlock, California, and that's in the Central Valley. And the pace of life in the Central Valley, and I would venture to say almost everywhere in the country is going to be, and many places in the world, the pace of life is very different than it is in Silicon Valley.
Yes.
And so I was wanting to sort of get your thoughts around, from your vantage point of hosting, a daily frontier tech briefing, what's one big thing? I mean, there could be more than one, but what's one big thing Silicon Valley misjudges about how everyday communities perceive, fear, or actually use AI?
So I think there are many things that Silicon Valley does not know about the rest of the world. And for example, I think only something like 1% of the global population has a subscription to any AI product right now. And so that is a very small percentage of people actually using AI on a subscription basis, actually willing to pay for it. And there's actually still not a lot of use cases outside of chatbots for the general public. So I think there's still like a long way to go. It's more accurate, I think, to say like what does Silicon Valley get right? It gets I think most of it wrong, and it misunderstands most of the rest of the world. I think what Silicon Valley does get right is that it tries to detect when a product has takeoff. And in the chatbots, they saw the initial takeoff for consumers. And I think they're just pursuing that line forward. Otherwise, I don't think Silicon Valley gets anything about the rest of the world right. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is definitely a much shorter list than I thought. It was the reverse list.
Yeah, it's probably because people are just focused on that one thing, which is growth,
Which is part of the reason why we're having this conversation, because I definitely feel like there's an enormous gap, right?
Yeah.
So speaking of gap, there is a huge gap, a massive gap between the people who are writing the algorithms and the people who have to live with the consequences. And how do you think we can build bridges so that people in agricultural, service, artistic communities have a voice in the future of AI instead of just feeling like it's being done to them?
There's not as big a gap as you would think, because the main thing that the top researchers are focusing on is automating research. So the people who are going to lose their jobs first are people in tech. So research, software engineers, as you've seen, have started. You've already seen like people are talking about the fall off. So tech is automating itself, and tech will feel the repercussions. These people will feel the repercussions first. So there's not actually that much of a difference in the sense that robotics in high thermal conditions and with water and soil and wind, etc. That's going to take a long time. So Silicon Valley is going to feel the repercussions first, and people are going to, there's a very deep sense in Silicon Valley that you should make your money in the next 2 years because all the jobs are going to go. And a lot of people have this concept of like, oh, if you don't make your money now, you're going to join the permanent underclass, which is a meme. So it is actually more accurate to say that people in the valley, the people closest to the tech, are automating themselves out of existence, and that they see this as a public good, that they should not have those jobs. And I think it's very hard to accept for other people because they also see these guys making a lot of money. So they're like, oh, whatever, right? But it is true that there is a lot of disillusionment. People are, coders went through it first. Mathematicians are going through it this last week. So this last week, OpenAI introduced a model which solved 10 fields level, kind of a Nobel Prize for mathematics. This commercial bot that you can buy for $200 a month solved 10 of these questions autonomously in about a week, and they published just this last week. And so professional mathematicians, PhDs, are now asking, well, what is there in it for me? I'm feeling very disillusioned. Like, what do I do next? Where's the future of mathematics research if all of research is going to be done by robotic, or these robots? It's basically disenfranchisement of the intellectual elite, starting from coding, AI research, mathematicians, physicists, and that's a process that's going to happen over the next, I think, 3 years or so. So, yeah.
And do you think that we can do anything to bridge that?
So I think a lot of people will have to move to a kind of deployment and execution, and there's this entire kind of like, the human being should be the one making up the thesis, which is like, hey, I think this is going to happen. And then you should, the scientific method is basically going and like getting a bunch of data, to answer that question. And then after that, you come out and you say, okay, the thesis is incorrect or correct. And that's a scientific method basically. And what's happening is the flip is actually, you just go collect the data first. You don't ask the question. After you collect the data, you pump the data through the AI bot, and the AI bot tells you which hypothesis would work. So you don't ask the question, you get the data. So you're kind of this meat robot for the AI. So you go get the data, and then you put it in the bot, and then the bot tells you like, okay, these are the questions that you can ask, and these are the answers that you can get. And it's really a kind of flippening of the entire scientific endeavor. And I think some people are starting to come around to that. You start to notice some, but it's really kind of a transition period. Scientists are having to say, okay, I'm not going to be the one asking the question now. I'm just going to be the one going out and gathering a bunch of data. And then after I gathered a bunch of data, the AI will tell me like, what is the hypothesis that would work. So I think it's a complete flip. It'll take adjustment. I think people will adjust, but yeah, it's new.
Yeah, and how do you feel about the emotions around it? Like, how do we deal with that? Because when we feel like things are being done to us, there's an instant, very negative, at least but I think not just I, have, where I'm like, hey, you didn't ask me, and I now am downstream of this. And so how do we manage through that? How do we improve what we're doing?
So the question that comes out is there was actually a medical researcher who was very upset. He was like, I would prefer that AI is delayed a little bit more so that we have more time to do cancer research rather than, these AIs solve all of cancer for us.
Huh.
Yes. So there's definitely this perspective that, it would be better that humanity's long problems not be solved so that the humans who are in those fields can have the glory of solving them for themselves. If you said that to any person on the street outside of Silicon Valley, they'd be like, that is ridiculous, right? There's a lot of this ridiculousness in the ivory tower kind of mentality. And I think it is only correct that we push that mentality out. So I have no problems in saying that I wish cancer was solved sooner, and I would not mind if AI would solve it as soon as possible. There are a lot of people who actually don't want that, and you have to fight that. When I come across these people, I fight them.
And these people are in Silicon Valley.
Oh, they're all over the place. They're in Silicon Valley. There are people who are like, I don't want this thing to find new battery tech. There's a lot of opposition. There's a lot of opposition all over the place. So I think it's good for us to ask, like, do we really want cancer solved, or do we just want to have the fun of like some people having great careers trying to solve cancer? Most people would take an improvement in the human condition regardless of whether AI delivered it or another human being delivered it. And I think once you come to that kind of like, okay, that is what I believe in, if it's going to deliver an improvement in the human condition, it doesn't matter if a bunch of cancer researchers, highly paid ones at Stanford Medical School, lose their jobs. I know that's kind of a brutal thing to say because these people are highly experienced. They spend 10, 15 years, doing this work and learning all this stuff. And all of a sudden an AI comes along and it solves it. And this has happened before. AlphaFold from Google, there were hundreds of professionals doing protein folding. Protein folding was a huge thing. And hundreds of them basically lost their careers after AlphaFold came out. But as a result of AlphaFold, you have all of this like medical developments and GLP-1s, et cetera, all of these protein therapies which are coming out now are a result of AlphaFold 1 getting solved by Google. And these people did lose their jobs. And I think it's only fair that we progress. The way progress works is that problems get solved, and the people who were on the wrong track of solving those problems have to move on to other things. So, yeah.
I think that art, and that's fascinating to hear actually, that there's that many people who are resistant somehow I don't know, in Silicon Valley. I think art is slightly different, not to be like, oh, we are a special snowflake. But let me move on to my next question because I think that it'll be threaded throughout. So I teach, as I mentioned, in-person classes, and I also have online modules where people can learn intro to rhythms or how to solo. And I have an online community of current and past students around the world. And right now, AI avatars and agents are getting pretty darn good at simulating empathy and friendship. And so I would love to get your thoughts on, do you think this technology will end up isolating us further behind the screens? Or do you think that it will drive people back into the local physical spaces because we really, really crave, right, the unsimulated human connection? And I suspect the answer is somewhere in between, but I want to just get your thoughts on that.
I think you will both have a rapid expansion in the amount of digital connection, and you have like much higher value for physical in-person connections. Mm-hmm. And I think you've kind of seen it already with music. For concerts, for example, concert prices are through the roof. A lot of music. So for musicians' income, I think in the early 2000s, a lot of the income was from CDs, and then you had this kind of downturn in the middle era, and then you have streaming. As streaming came up, a lot of the musicians had transitioned into having live shows, and the live shows are now live shows, merch, and a bunch of these other things are primary income for a lot of musicians now. So I think you will see both in the sense that you see this rapid expansion in the amount of digital, like you did with streaming, and you also see much higher value for things which are live and in person. I also think this idea of parasocial connections, parasociality meaning that you have a one-way connection to a fan, or as a fan to an idol. I believe a lot of people have this kind of parasocial connections already with their singers or their artists or politicians too. Like they're like, oh, Donald Trump would say this, like blah blah. Donald Trump would tell me like, or Joe Biden or Obama or whatever, right? So there is this aspect of parasociality that I think is inherent in a lot of like this kind of fan to one-to-many relationships where the one person is communicating with like 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 million people. And I think that aspect of parasocial connections will start to become bigger. So it's not actually going to be you kind of like having a connection with a completely digital being, but you being able to interact with Jon Bon Jovi over the phone, talk to him, etc., etc. It is an AI model, and it will be explicit that it is, but the illusion would be fantastic. Right? And you would know the illusion, but still, it's like, hey, I got Jon Bon Jovi on my phone, and he sings me to sleep every day. Like, it's awesome, right? There's going to be kind of like digital avatars published for people, and you're going to be able to have that like depth of interaction as a fan with an idol that you did not used to have. I think a lot of people find it creepy, but I can definitely see like tons of people like enjoying having their connection to Taylor Swift or Jon Bon Jovi or whatever. They understand it's an AI, but it's still, hey, it's awesome, right? Then you will have that ability to have that digital connection on one side and then go in person and do the concert on the other. You have this complete like,
continuum.
Continuum from the digital to the visual to the real life. So all of those things are there. I don't think humanity changes. I think these AI things will be used as tools to express ourselves in ways that we were not able to express ourselves before. And I think that one-to-many connection is probably one of them. So,
fascinating. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. My next question is around historical tech shifts. So in the podcasts I've listened to and the things that I've read, some people argue like, hey, we've always had these big shifts. Like, it's not a big deal, people. Like, Industrial Revolution, you know? But I think the difference is that even when it comes to more recent technological shifts like the internet or smartphones, they rolled out over years and decades, and so people have more time to adapt. And AI just seems to be affecting especially certain slices, demographic or regional slices, more quickly and more deeply. It seems almost overnight. And my question is, what happens to that social fabric? How do we prepare, if we can at all, for that whiplash feeling?
I think there is going to be a period of turmoil, because what we expect to see is acceleration upon acceleration. So you expect to see more and more things happen frequently. And I think human beings will adapt. Typically, there's hedonic adjustment. What we usually see is when a new AI model is released, there's maybe like a 24-hour period of euphoria or depression, depending on which side you're on. And then after that 24 hours, people start identifying the ways that it doesn't work as well, or like there's some flaw in it, or it doesn't do something, etc. And after that, people are completely hedonically adjusted, and they're like, yeah, whatever. I think human beings are infinitely adaptable. Hedonic adjustment happens very, very quickly. People just kind of move on. So I think the adjustment period is fine. I think the social adaptation of jobs, society, institutions, that's going to take a little bit longer. And I think some institutions will struggle, and some institutions will not struggle, and will adapt. So.
And as a follow-on, what industries or communities do you think are sitting in that immediate splash zone, in that front line of rapid AI disruption? And is there anything they should be doing to protect themselves or to mitigate?
I think if you work in front of a computer most of your day, that is something that is going to disappear. That doesn't mean that your job disappears, but it does mean that the work in front of the computer is going to disappear. I'll give you an example. A lot of doctors now spend roughly about 30% of their time entering data into an electronic health records thing. They fought so hard. They spent 10, 15 years fighting it, and Obamacare finally came in with enough budget to actually force the transition through. And it's something that they hate. It takes time away from the patients, but it's something that they have to do in front of the computer. It's completely replaceable. As a result of that replacement, they will get more time to talk to the patient directly without having to, hey, okay, let me write that down, right? So I think the stuff that you do in front of the computer for work should disappear. A lot of it is basically transferring data from one place to another. Oh, I read this email, I'm going to type it into the CRM. I looked at the test result from this machine, I'm going to put it into the health record here. A lot of it is very unnecessary and very frustrating that people think that that should be a normal course of affairs. If you're a doctor, you should just need to see the data and see the record, but you shouldn't need to be the one typing it in or entering the data. And all of that should be kind of handled by the emergent compute cloud around you. I think that's not actually going to be a bad thing for many jobs, including sales. A lot of sales should really be face-to-face time. A lot of salespeople actually spend a lot of time after the meeting coming back and entering stuff into the system so that everyone else on the sales team understands what went on, and so that you have a consolidated view of the customer. So there's so much make work that we do, so much. It's very disheartening that people think that that's their job. Your job is not to enter stuff into a computer, right? The computer should absorb the data on its own. And your job should be to talk to people and to sell or empathize with the patient or whatever it is. My hope is that the jobs kind of drift to the real high value human touch pieces, and kind of go away from the very low value, like transferring stuff from one system to another, from email to the database, from database to another email. Nonsensical make work that we do on a day-to-day basis. So
yeah, that would be awesome. When I think about what you said and how it applies to the art world, so either ironically or not ironically, a lot of what I do now as somebody who's transitioned away from being a senior program manager at Google and learning development, where I was for more than 22 years, is I actually have a lot of my day spent in front of the computer. I want to say almost more. As a program manager, I am talking with different roles and, you know, a lot of alignment. So I actually now, because it's my creation, right? And how one of my master teachers, April Rose, described it, and I love this about art, is you create something from nothing, right? And so I actually do end up physically sitting in front of a computer, and it's not something that can be replaced. And of course, now that you're talking, I'm like, I wonder, you know, what we could create, right?
Mm-hmm.
What could I vibe code up or something, right, to facilitate that process? But I actually am sitting in front of a computer quite a bit. And I wonder if you're in a creative position, whether you're a dancer or a musician or a painter or interior decoration, a creative artistic profession, how would you adjust what you just said? Because it's not just moving information from one database to another. It's actually a tool for me to get what's from inside of my head outwards and organized in a way where I can communicate it outwards and hopefully cause some sort of a learning or behavior change or artistic, creative aha, right? That would be ideal. So how would you adjust what you just said based on?
I basically think like you should not need any software for work. Like all of your work software should be subsumed to a single AI agent, assistant. That assistant should have memory of you know, whatever that you've done before, how you've responded to people, should have your contact list, and should know all your background, should know your calendar. If you have that agent with all of that context and is able to use all of the software on your computer, and you trust it, which is another step, and you trust it, you can vibe manage your life, because the agent will basically know what to say to who, you know, how your schedule is looking like, and et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of like having someone take care of you all the time, right? Like a little bit like a guardian angel, kind of knows all your stuff and knows what you would do in the right thing, but also comes back to you for permissions when it needs it. With that, I think a lot of the work computer use should go away. That should be the goal. Like you should only need to use a computer when it's something that, you know, you need to do for pleasure, etc. There will be, I think, user interface on the fly. So this is something that people have been talking about for a while. But the AI assistant should be able to generate, you know, graphs for you, or buttons, or whatever else it is, to make it easier for you to interact with it. You should be able to touch the computer screen and like, hey, you know, get rid of that, and it should do it. There's just a lot of things that, you know, your computer could do, but current software and the companies that control current software don't want you to do it, right? Like, so I'm friends with a bunch of people at Google, and I say, hey, when can I ever tell your AI to skip the Google ads for me, skip the YouTube ads for me? Because you have to pay for YouTube Premium in order to skip ads, right? It's unlikely that an Android phone will ever have an AI that will allow you to skip the, you know, YouTube ads, because that's a paid service, right? So these are the things. Your devices and your software are heavily locked down by the big tech firms, and they prevent you from doing a lot of stuff, which you should be able to do, like skip ads, etc. And like, you should have an AI agent that basically takes care of all of that for you. And that is heavily disruptive to the current industry kind of business model, which is why I think like when the first AI personal assistants come out, like sometime next year, it is going to break the industry in a way. I think some people kind of understand. Some people are like, you know, hoping that it doesn't happen. It's not going to be all positive, because a lot of our publishers now depend on ads, and breaking the ad model means that you break like the revenues of the New York Times and Reddit and all these people. But it also means that you don't have to like look at the ads anymore. You don't have this kind of notifications coming in all the time. All of that gets handled for you. I think that is emergent, that's coming soon. And I don't think the big firms are really looking forward to that. depending on where in the structure they're in. We'll see what happens.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So continuing along our theme, so I have an online dance community and I call it GLOW, which is an acronym for ground yourself, learn something new, open your mind, awaken your spirit, just easy to remember. And I like to think of it as tuning inwards and also connecting with the body. And as AI takes more and more of the cognitive grunt work, as we've been talking about, and software begins to code itself and things just get done, like you were saying, right? A lot of non-technical people, I think, feel this quiet sense of dread, maybe not so quiet, and existential dread. And so how do we help the rest of us, right, who are not the middle of the middle in this AI revolution in Silicon Valley, find a sense of purpose, worth, identity that isn't tied to economic productivity in an AI-driven world?
There's a few things there. One is the existential sense of dread, being a non-technical person, and one is finding productive value. Firstly, I think you should have an existential sense of dread if you are a technical person, because the AIs are getting very good at solving technical problems. As you can see with vibe coding, it has brought coding to a whole new audience who is less technically savvy and is actually now like, oh, I can do this now. In every instance, AI should be capability enhancing for almost everyone. As someone non-technical, you're not going to get a worse deal than you were when you didn't have that technical capability anyway. In fact, now you have more people with technical capability everywhere because the AI has democratized coding and other forms. So I think it's actually the other way that the existential dread should be. If you are a technical person, AI is coming for your very highly valued and very highly paid skill. It is going to be one of the first things that gets automated. And you're going to have to find, if you were only doing that particular thing, you need to be able to find something where you are providing value in terms of like face-to-face relationships with someone rather than just, mathematical formula or a piece of code.
So we didn't set this up as an alley-oop, but can I offer you a suggestion? Why don't you take belly dancing with me?
I'm going to come to the class today, so.
Is, I think that any kind of organizing structure that allows you to build community, that helps people get in tune, with their own bodies, that helps you become healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, socially. Yeah. So that's my plug. So if you're working in the tech sector, actually anybody, I'm obviously very biased, but look at the testimonials my students have said. I mean, I've had quite a few people. I've had a real estate agent who told me, oh my gosh, this is so hard. I've never danced before. And after the first class, she was like, I'm never coming back. But then she realized as she put her key in the car door, I didn't think about anything else for the last 45 minutes. No to-do list, no like what contract needs to be signed, what did my kids ask me for? And she was like, that's amazing. It's like a break from myself. It's a break from my own sort of mental tape, right? There's so many things I learned from my students. And also outwardly, I have a student who's a therapist who tells me that I help her become, not I personally, but belly dancing helps her become a better therapist because we all have stressful jobs in our own ways, and it allows her to sort of release that, express herself, and take care of herself so that she can be, refreshed and revitalized and recharged. And I love using those two examples, and you'll hear me say it again and again, because those are two such different industries, like real estate and therapy. Everyone who comes to class gets something different out of it. And I teach little kids all the way up to grandmas. So I think there's something valuable in that. That's my plug for belly dancing. Okay, moving on to my my last question here. My last official question is: if you could sit down with one of my dance students who's never touched an AI tool, and I mean like not just, hey, ChatGPT, help me make this email sound better. Like that I think is very, very surface. But I mean an AI tool, is deeply skeptical, is worried what it means for their children or their grandchildren's future. What is the most grounded, hype-free reason that you can give them to help them feel optimistic about this frontier? And I think this is a perfect question for you because as we were walking back on the trail, you had said, I'm really optimistic. I'm like, this is great. So tell me more.
I am very, very optimistic because I think right now you have a lot of expertise and knowledge, etc., which is kind of trapped, and it's very, very hard to transmit. And we end up with these like long chains of like education and training, et cetera, in order to become a doctor, a lawyer, etc. I think like 50% of people who end up having an arrest or whatever, they don't get adequate representation. It's very visible sometimes when you see like a rich person get arrested and they have like very, very good lawyers, and there's always a way that they can find to like get out or get the sentencing reduced or get out in like good behavior, etc. And then you have the poor and the indigent who don't, right? So I think there's an enormous gap in like that we don't have the amount of expertise and amount of talent at the right price that's available in order to actually help these people. You also see that in medicine. You see that in law, obviously. You see that in even banking. You often see larger companies be represented by very expensive bankers who are able to get things done, and then you see smaller firms who can't raise a loan for the life of them because they can't get all the documents together. So I think there is an enormous gap in the level of competence available to someone who wants to do something because it's just outpriced, and competence is very expensive in the world. So I think having that competence be everywhere is going to be great for everyone, right? I compare it to Disneyland. I love Disneyland. I used to work in Singapore Airlines, which is very, very customer service centric. And if you've ever worked for a very, very customer service centric organization, you know that their way of viewing the customer is very, very different. It's almost like a religious cult on the customer. And when you walk into Disneyland, they check your bags. Having worked for an airline, I used to have worked inside the airport, inside the security cordon. And when they open up your bags, they open it up, and then he takes a spotlight and he then opens up every single compartment, and he looks inside and he does a little bit of a digging, and like he makes sure he spotlights every single compartment, and like very quick. It takes him about a minute or so. That is more competent than like 80% of the airports I've been to. They're not that competent. And you'll also notice other things in Disneyland. A lot of the rides, when you look at them, they're under like very high lighting, and there's no dust. It is very, very difficult, on all these small fixtures to not have dust under high lighting. It's almost impossible. Which means that they have a cleaning team which is willing to come in and is committed enough to actually like look over and spot every single piece of dust and clean it off every single time. And if you've ever tried to hire like outsource cleaning for like your office space, you are not going to get that level of competence. It does not exist, right? So the level of competence required to run that kind of thing is why Disneyland is so expensive, right? It's so expensive because it takes them like the minimum barrier of quality that they're willing to accept is that level, and if you can't pass that barrier of quality, you're not gonna get employed there. And it takes, so Walt Disney basically created this organization that's able to maintain that quality for over 100 years, like basically a religious cult, right? And I think that it is also so expensive to maintain. And what I felt is that if you could have that kind of competence available, through AI, you can have many more Disneylands. You could have many, many more, more accessible, more people can go to them. The pricing can be cheaper, and it's just, everyone kind of wins, right? And so one of the ways that I think about AI in the future is that you could have all of these like very, very high quality experiences, which are currently gated by cost. And gated by cost because it's very expensive to maintain, and it's very expensive to train people, and it's very expensive to get people in the right mindset to actually deliver that kind of like experience. And I think that is kind of a viewpoint of where of how the world could look like. Everything could look like Disneyland. Like your kids could be safe everywhere. Like Disneyland has like a lot of security. Your kids are absolutely safe in there. They ban people. They ban people for life. So I think there's you can expect a world of much higher quality, which is available to a lot more people at a lot lower price point. and that is, I think, like very exciting. And I don't think of it as of us being in competition with AI. I think about it as that if everyone else has AI, I have a better life. If everyone else has self-driving, like I am less likely to get into an accident. If everyone else also uses self-driving, everyone has lower insurance premiums. Everyone. Like Warren Buffett is worried because if self-driving becomes, very common, Geico will go out of business. His auto insurance company will collapse, right? So I like absolutely hate Warren Buffett because he's the avatar of like everything. Like everything he invested in is stuff which will get destroyed by AI and which will get destroyed by better technology. Like Coca-Cola, GLP-1s are destroying Coca-Cola right now. He invested in a bunch of car dealerships. All car dealerships have franchise from the state in the US, and that's why car dealers are often the biggest donors in their community. They're often the ones who fund the high school football team and et cetera, because they have a franchise from the state, and the national companies are not allowed to pull out, which is why Elon does not have car dealerships. He's selling direct and he's banned in some states. So I think you can look at it as a lot of these things that we got used to in the 20th century are basically things which are not that great and which deserve to die. Self-driving systems, and fewer people should die in accidents. The very funny thing is that the accident and injury attorney lobby is lobbying every state to prevent self-driving. They've been the ones primarily slowing down self-driving across the US for the last decade or so, because 1% of the US GDP is in lawsuits for car accidents and medical malpractice. 1% of US GDP, which is why when you go to a football game and you see, the ads for lawyers, that's why 1% of US GDP is in just car accidents and medical malpractice. So to the extent that those things get solved, that is amazing. To the extent that those lawyers lose business, I am very, very happy, and I think everyone else should be very happy too. But those lawyers are not obviously happy, and I think that's where the pushback is. Like the economic models of the 20th century are going to die in the next 20 years, and a lot of people who basically became parasites, feeding on the bad stuff that happened in society will lose. I think we should all be kind of happy about that, but those people will not be, and they will push back.
How does that affect, if at all, how you guide your children, what they decide to do now, right? And also in high school and college, because there's this sort of track that I think probably a lot of us at Stanford either knowingly or unknowingly got on. And how do you think you would adjust that for your kids?
So I have dropped off the whole Kumon and math and things because
my son's gonna be C.
Yeah, so I have kind of dropped off on that because I don't think it's necessary anymore. I would probably have put my kids in coding earlier, but as of 2 years ago, I was like, there's no point in learning any coding. So no need for coding, no need for math, etc.
Not even to build up that capacity and that awareness and that touch for things?
Nah, not really. I think what ends up happening is that if you really need to know something, the AI tutors will be very, very good at teaching you on the spot. So you need to have passion in order to do something. And if you have that passion to do something, you don't need a consolidated bank of knowledge already built up. You can basically just learn on the fly and learn what you need to do in order to solve whatever you want to solve. I think the ability to rapidly interact with the AI, ask the right questions. I think this kind of more conversational in the sense that you need to be able to interrogate your solutions and your weaknesses and what the AI tells you, and you need to be able to ask the questions. So asking the questions of the AI becomes more important than trying to figure out how to do the answers on your own. Being able to stress test the AI, okay, what are you telling me? What are you not telling me? What if this happens? What if that happens? Because basically what happens is you end up, instead of being the analyst, you become the user of an analyst. Our whole system is built up to create this form of analyst person. And this analyst person is basically someone who reads something or interacts with some form of data and then writes an internal report to an organization. And then that gets consolidated into a decision-making apparatus that makes decisions out of that. And I think that value of like being the analyst is basically gone now, because the AI is basically your external analyst, which susses through the data and kind of delivers but you have to ask the questions. And you have to ask the questions in a meaningful way according to the decision that you want to make. Asking the questions becomes more important than actually sitting down to try and figure out how to derive the answer. AIs will also often give you moderate answers in the field. Like if you have like a little curve, it'll kind of target like the middle. Oftentimes you end up in real life situations where you are on the tails of either end, and this kind of middle ground answer is not helpful. So being able to understand why the AI is giving you the answer and in what circumstances you would get a different answer out of it, and being able to stress test and ask those questions. So it's a lot more critical thinking about the problem and how to ask the questions than it is about knowing how to find the answer. And I think the 20th century, we had this like industrial system of producing kind of standardized minds, and those standardized minds could then be consumed by these companies. And that this industrial system of everyone knowing like the same base of knowledge is completely useless, because the AI knows that exact same base of knowledge. And so you need to have like an independent viewpoint which is different from the AI, so that you know how to interrogate in a different way and get different solutions, rather than the ones which are, you know, automatically offered as the baseline. And so I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, because we got really used to producing people who like basically learn exactly the same thing and produce exactly the same answer, and there is a right answer. And I think that's not there. Besides that, there are things which AI will never be able to do. One of those is that there's always probability. This is the example I'll give you. Elon Musk, had to take over Twitter, right? When he had to take over Twitter, his lawyers rightly advised him to do the due diligence. Elon said, no, I'm not going to do the due diligence. It's done. Like, I want to go ahead. It got him into a lot of trouble later on. But as the CEO, he had the right, and he said, no, I'm not going to do the DD. I'm going to go ahead and acquire the company. When I deal with CEOs, a lot of times, some CEOs don't understand that lawyers are advisors. So lawyers give you the advice, but you can make a decision which is contrary to the lawyer's advice. And a lot of times lawyers and corporations give you civil law advice, like don't breach a contract. Yeah, I know I'm not supposed to breach the contract, but if I breach, what's the problem? Like, I'm gonna get sued for $1 million, it's a $1 billion company, come on, like, it's okay. Let's just go ahead, we'll work on it. If we have a problem later on, I'll go and talk to the other CEO, and I take him out for a drink. Like, that's something that the CEO can say. But the lawyer is not allowed to say that. The lawyer has to tell you breaching the contract is wrong, right? And a lot of CEOs get very confused about this, and they think that everything is driven by the lawyers. They're like, oh, the lawyer told me to do this, I have to do this. And then they end up in these situations where you can't do anything because the lawyers have put you in this little box and you can't really like do anything. But actually you have complete freedom of action. You just have to be willing to lose your job. Like, you have to understand that there are actions and there are consequences, and where the edges of your domain are, and what you can do and what you can't do. And I think that is something that people don't really grasp. Like, decision makers often don't grasp unless they're very experienced. And so I think that's the kind of thing that you can try and teach. One good way of teaching that is allowing kids to play poker. So poker is excellent way of teaching that, because you have to know that there are the cards, but there are also the betting, and whether or not the betting can help you, even when your cards are not good. Those are decisions that you have to make. And then you have this kind of two games, which is the card game and then the betting game, which is two separate games going on at the same time.
So no Kumon, just poker games.
Yeah. Poker is much better, because you have to be able to make decisions under uncertainty. And uncertainty is something that AI will never. The AI will give you good advice, like the lawyer, but you will always be the decision maker with this kind of uncertain outlook on whether something is going to happen or not. And so you always, as the human being, you'll always have those decisions to make, and the AI will just give you kind of the analysis, but it's still your decision to make. You have to kind of recognize those decisions and be able to make those decisions. A lot of people have regrets. Like, for example, you make a decision and you regret it. So you have to also separate out the actual outcome from the decision itself, because the outcome is still dictated by chance. And so you can make the right decision but still have a bad outcome. that doesn't mean you change your decision-making process. So there's a bunch of these skills that you have to learn, which are more complex than just data analysis or reading or regurgitation. These are typically not taught in schools, and I think those skills are kind of the higher skills that you have to like pick up. So that's one thing. Like, if not poker, board games are also good. Like, board games are excellent because you have, again, these multiple games going on at the same time sometimes. I don't think the Kumon actually helps that much anymore. It helps a little bit, I think, with numeracy, but I don't think in the long run it's going to help that much. So.
Well, as an English major, I'm like, yay, I did a lot of Kumon.
Yeah.
But I still, and also in defense of prep centers, my son does still do the Kumon workbooks, and I'm not going to have him stop doing that,
Yeah.
but he also does a broad range. So, my response to what you're saying is that, first of all, fascinating,
Yeah.
and I'm not bad at Texas Hold'em, but
Yeah.
I'm also not great. But hey, it's like, okay, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
My approach as a dance teacher, as a parent, as I mentor through the Stanford Alumni Network. The way that I sort of view this very dynamic environment, and again, I'm very biased as a dance teacher, but I think that creative, artistic things are perfect for that.
Yeah.
Because you don't know exactly what's going to happen
Yeah.
next. Like
Yeah.
what you're saying is like it's not deterministic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to do something as nuts as you could
Yeah.
doing improv, right?
Yeah.
A group improv on stage in front of an audience, right? That's very difficult.
Yeah.
But I think even something as quote unquote simple, right, as taking a partner dancing class. So I was in Swing Time and also the Vintage Dance Ensemble with Richard Powers.
I was in Vintage for half a quarter.
Oh, look at you! I didn't know that.
I got kicked out because I showed up to the practices.
Oh,
So.
I did not know that. We'll follow up on that separately. And so I think that partner dancing, you have a structure that you work within, but you don't know, either lead or follow, you don't know exactly what's going to happen next. And as a ballet dancer, what makes me feel the most present in a sort of almost meditative way is dancing improv to live music. Because even if you get the chance to tell them what song, and sometimes you don't, but sometimes you can say, okay, I would like Habina Habina, or whatever your song is. They could play it in a totally different way. You don't know how many times they're going to play this verse or even the chorus sometimes, or the tempo could be a little bit different. It's just going to sound different because they have a different set of instruments. You have a structure, you have a framework, and you are also needing to think about what do you want to do with that in the moment. I really think that having something artistic stimulates that, right? Because I think what you're saying is like math and the things that have a specific answer, right or wrong, yes or no, like that's not super helpful because that's not what the future is maybe asking of our children and ourselves.
Yeah.
So of course, this is my plug.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up here, what's your website, social handle, whatever people want to come?
You can find us on Twitter, AI_IN_THE_AM at AI in the AM. We have a YouTube, it's the same at AI in the AM.
I'm at StephanieBellyDance.com, and my YouTube is also at Stephanie Belly Dance, and Instagram Stephanie Belly Dance for performances, and a separate one for teaching classes. And I feel like I could talk with you about this forever, and maybe we'll make this an annual thing. Every year that I see you, we can follow up and see what has happened.
An annual update.
Yeah, and just see where the world is as the world turns, right?
Yeah.
So much has changed,
Indeed.
and so much will change.
Indeed.
So lots to talk about. All right, well, thanks for tuning in, and let us know if you have any questions. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.